In the news this week, climate, not COVID, what the Greens are offering young voters in this election.
Masks off for nights out. Perth heads out for the first night without restrictions.
Young people, the winners in an astonishing boost to mental health services.
And on Western Perspective, a feature interview with Brad Pettitt, plus Dr. Miller's COVID comment.
This is the Evening News with Ivan Lowe and Sarah Smith.
Good evening. An election on climate, not COVID. That's what Fremantle Mayor and Greens Upper House candidate Brad Pettitt says should be the focus in March. He says older voters won't be alienated by the party's many youth candidates. Here's his take on Mark McGowan's presidential-style campaign, the Libs' progressive shift, and what the Greens have to offer to young voters. But everyone is lauding the government at the moment, so why would they choose the Greens? You've never been in government.
Yeah, that's right. But look, the government has done good stuff around COVID. I think credit where credit is due.
So do you admit that this is a COVID election rather than a climate election?
I think that's a real danger. The danger is that it could be a COVID election, and I think that will be a mistake for the people of Western Australia. The truth of the matter is, COVID by the end of 2021 will largely be dealt with in terms of vaccinations, and will largely be behind us. But we're actually going to have another 3 or 4 more years of this government post-COVID. And the real question Western Australians need to ask themselves is, whilst the McGowan government has dealt with COVID well, have they dealt with the other key issues well? Have they dealt with housing and homelessness well? Have they dealt with investing in public transport in the right places well? Have they dealt with climate change well? And I think there are big question marks against those things.
19 candidates are below the age of 35. Where on earth is the policy comes from? Say, do you believe that will be enough to alienate older voters?
Look, I don't think so. I think actually I'm really proud that the Greens are a party where young people get involved and are volunteering and are putting their hands forward to be members of Parliament. That's a good thing. And I'm really proud that we've got one of the highest numbers in that regard. I don't think it alienates most people. Most older people are parents, are grandparents, and they know that we are facing a huge challenge for this planet. We are seeing climate change will remake this century, and young people get that. And young people are willing to say we need to not leave the future to the previous generation, but actually start to bring about change. So I don't think it will alienate people. I actually think it should encourage people, knowing that we have passionate young people involved in politics. Where our portfolios lie.
Zach Kirkup is obviously putting up a pretty good fight despite what happened recently. He's picking up. So as one of the competitors out there, as a minor party competing, what's your view on them?
Actually, I've been pretty impressed with some of the shifts we've seen in the Liberal Party under Zach Kirkup's leadership. We've seen a much more progressive side to the Liberal Party, where I think under Barnett and under Lisa Harvey, I think they were quite a conservative party. And I think there's been some good innovation. And I'm actually, I'll talk about bike lanes. I think they've done some good stuff. Climate, I think we'll see some good stuff as well. Doesn't make it as good as the Greens in this space, but it's refreshing to see at least the Liberals catching up in some of these key areas.
It wasn't fun, but we made it. West Aussies will be relieved to breathe easy this weekend as WA's COVID restrictions ease off.
Authorities have detected no new community spread in the 14 days since we went into lockdown, and precautionary measures were wound back at 12:01 this morning. Helene Fung with the details.
Masks are off the menu for the foreseeable future as WA's COVID transition measures ended today, following the end of the 5-day lockdown. The new rules take Western Australians back to the pre-lockdown restrictions. Venues will still need to abide by the 2 square metre rule, and customers will need to check into businesses with a safe WA QR code or contact register. Health Minister Roger Cook congratulated WA on making it to the end of the restrictions.
I want to add my thanks to all our healthcare and police officers, healthcare workers and police officers right throughout the state that have done an outstanding job during this COVID-19 experience.
Travellers enjoyed their newfound freedoms at Northbridge's nightclubs last night. Young people were excited to be able to get back to life as usual and say they're just happy to be in WA. Helene Fung, WAMN News.
The state election is looming and the promises are flying as parties scramble to win voters. Already many spectators are calling it for Labor, but the incumbents are bringing out huge spending commitments still. This week saw the Premier and Health Minister promise more than $250 million in new mental health funding. Kit Sanders reports.
4 weeks out from the state election, Premier Mark McGowan has announced an astonishing $361 million of new funding for mental health services. The money will be invested into expanding existing services and establishing new ones, with a focus on youth and rural communities, including South Hedland, Albany, Karratha, and more.
We have now allocated over $1 billion per year into mental health services, which we increased by $300 million in the last budget. As part of our election commitments, we're increasing that by another $361 million.
Youth Services will receive $120 million, including a $35 million expansion of the Step Up, Step Down program to accommodate young people either before a crisis occurs or coming out of hospital crisis care.
This is a significant investment to make sure that people, regardless of what stage that they are on their mental health journey, that we are there to be with them all the way, to support them, to treat them if necessary.
If Labor is re-elected, the funding will also go towards putting trained mental health care professionals in police cars to call-outs involving people in mental health crisis, so that they might receive the treatment that they require rather than being incarcerated. Kit Sanders, WAMN News.
A 26-year-old Gumalingup woman has been charged after driving a stolen car at high speeds through a COVID checkpoint while intoxicated. In terrifying scenes, the stolen Ford Falcon blew through the Moranbah COVID checkpoint on 2J Road. Police attempted to intercept the car but were unable to make contact due to the high speeds. The 27-year-old man from Northam, who was a passenger in the vehicle at the time, was also charged with stealing a motor vehicle. The pair appeared in Perth Magistrates Court on Friday.
While many businesses lost custom during WA's COVID shutdown, Grandma and Me in Booragoon went into overdrive. Martine McKenna and her mother Lindley Bodice run a handmade children's clothing store in Booragoon. But during the COVID crisis, they pivoted to making masks and medical scrubs. WA's snap lockdown sent demand through the roof.
We did have a stockpile of some to start with, so as soon as the announcement was made, we sort of said, we have masks available, and we opened that Sunday afternoon and we were inundated with customers.
With orders flooding in, Martine and Lindley were working 12-hour days to keep up with demand. But Martine doesn't think the demand will continue past Sunday.
A suite of ambitious clean energy targets announced by the Liberals this week that have been excoriated by WA Premier Mark McGowan. The Libs have committed to net zero emissions for the WA government by 2030, selling off publicly owned coal-fired power stations and transitioning to renewables. Liberal leader Zac Kirkup says the target is part of the Libs' Energy Jobs Plan, which they say will create 200,000 jobs by coaxing manufacturers back to WA.
Do we want to be a state that looks back and now loses out the opportunities of the future, or do we want to be a state that looks to the future with enthusiasm, doesn't shy away from the challenges that are ahead of us, and embraces the options that are available to make sure we invest in mega-scale projects like battery, like solar, to make sure we back in gas production here, as well as making sure we look at unlocking hydrogen and invest in those small businesses to bring down their power prices.
The Premier was unimpressed with the commitments, saying the promises of net zero emissions were unrealistic.
A free flow of traffic is on the cards for Mandurah, with Labor promising a second Mandurah estuary bridge for the community. The $110 million bridge will be a duplication of the current bridge, with room for the 2 lanes to be expanded to 3 to improve cycling and pedestrian access. 500 local jobs will be created in the construction of the bridge, which the party says will get the community home sooner and safer.
In negotiating with the Commonwealth has also been demonstrated, and we're very keen to make sure we work with the Commonwealth to continue to deliver a record amount of infrastructure. As I said, this is a project that's been talked about for many, many years, and as you can see, it's not fit for purpose and we need to upgrade it.
It's the year of the ox, and the Perth Chinese community has kick-started the annual Lunar New Year festival in the city. Traditionally held on James Street in Northbridge, this year the event got underway in Perth's Cultural Centre Square instead. From the famous lion and dragon dance, food stalls, carnival games to the official multicultural concerts, there's something for everyone. This is the first major event to be held in Perth following a 5-day COVID-19 lockdown.
I'm very, very pleased that we can hold this event as planned. 2 weeks ago we considered to postpone or cancel the event, but luckily our Western Australians have done very, very good job to not only protect ourselves, but also protecting our community. I would like to take this opportunity to wish all Western Australians a healthy and wealthy year of the ox.
And that's our weekly news and current affairs. For the latest, go to our website, wamnnews.com.au.
Until next Sunday evening, from Sarah and myself, we wish you good health and good night.
Thanks for tuning in.